Welcome to the Gateless Podcast. I'm really glad that you're here. I'm your host, Kara Carews. This is where you'll find conversations with self-made women who share their playbooks, their tips, their actual experiences on the journey to success. I also chat with experts and practitioners of mindset, stress, productivity, emotional, and mental health, because if you're listening to this, you're somebody that bets boldly on yourself and you care about optimizing how you feel, perform, give back, love, and just move through the world. This podcast is here to help you become the absolute most incredible version of yourself in life and in business. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an episode. We really appreciate your feedback and reviews. The only way that we grow right now is from you sharing your favorite episodes with your family and friends on social media. So thank you for doing that. Go do that big, cool thing that you've been dreaming about today. Thank you so much for being here, Christine. I couldn't be more excited to have this conversation. I think it's very timely in my life, but I also feel like there's a lot going on in probably all of our listeners' lives that this episode is surely going to be a bookmarked one and probably a listened to multiple times conversation. So thank you for taking an hour of your day to talk to me.
Thank you for having me. I'm so honored. I just always love to have beautiful new connections that are made and the conversations that come out of this. And just whoever needs to be touched with this message today, I just hope that it just penetrates their heart and just really sinks in.
I hope so too. What would be helpful is if before we dig into anything, because I know once we start going, we'll go fast, could you just introduce yourself and the work that you do? I know you have multiple different lines of business, but tell us a little about what your
Yes.
work and then how you work with clients and just anything that is resonating with the work that you're actually doing right now.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Well, my name is Christine Jewell, and I am a holistic health and high performance coach. I'm specifically working with founders, C-suite executives, leaders who really are at this crossroads. Something is going on in their life, and they're going, "What is next?" Right? I've built super successful businesses. Usually, by the time they get to me, their marriage is on the rocks or on the way out, or they're trying to figure out what is going on. Either how do I rebuild on solid ground or how do I build on solid ground going forward? And so one of the things I often say, and my husband and I say this a lot, is leadership is reflection. Everything that's going on in an outer world is a reflection of what's going on in our inner world. And so by the time the leaders come to me, they're looking around going, I either want to burn this all down, I want to run away, I want to start over, but I don't want to feel sort of trapped in this life that I've built. So that's where I come in. And that's why I say it's not for everybody. It's for someone who's really ready to get out of their head into their heart. I do a lot of faith-based work. So a lot of my coaching is founded on Christ-centered principles, which is love really at the root of everything. It's like the core is really a life of love, a life of peace, a life of freedom. And it's interesting because we live in a world that we are taught to chase things that are chaotic and complicated and always creating from pressure. And it's insanity. And so I love supporting leaders on this journey of getting things back in the right order, starting with their relationship with themselves, their relationship with God, their relationships with the opposite sex, and really stepping into the mission and calling that they're being called into in this season of life. Because I do believe that each season is preparing us, our character, our skill sets, our hearts, everything for the next season that we're being called into. And if you stay in one season too long, you start feeling stagnant and like your soul is dying a slow death, because it is, because you're no longer creating and evolving and doing the things you're being called to do. So that is my long-winded way. That is not my elevator pitch, but that's really what sets my soul on fire, is helping leaders, entrepreneurs, leaders get in the right place so that they can add life back into their marriages, their relationships, their business, and really live from a place of true freedom. And what I mean by that is, we all want time freedom. We want mental freedom from all the chaotic thoughts in our heads. You want emotional freedom from all the garbage of our past. And we go through all this stuff and we're either like trying to suppress it or repress it or do everything else, but actually clean out the garbage that's there so that we can make room for what's to come.
That makes absolute sense. So you described the type of person that you work with most often and the season of their life that they're in, usually when they come to you, because you're able to describe it so specifically and articulately, like it lends itself to the understanding that probably there's a ton of people that fit that mold in our world, which is, I mean, a whole other topic that we could go down. And I kind of want to touch on it. Like, I am a leader of a startup company. I
Hmm.
seen this happen around me time and time again in the more than a decade that I've been in tech. And
Yep.
it's almost like not even shocking anymore when people's lives fall apart right around the time where they're on paper, like potentially the most successful that
Yeah.
they've ever been, or
Yeah.
the most busy and in the business that they've ever been. I'm
Hmm.
curious to learn more about your perspective on if that happens so frequently, like what is the foundation that we didn't build upon or that most people are missing that allows things to get, like, so off balance and rocked so deeply when the chaos reaches a height, the family demands reach a specific height, your business demands reach a specific height. Like, what is it that isn't grounding people when all of this happens and things come crashing down and they
Come
need the
on.
help that you that you offer?
That is such a deep question. Come on, we're going right in. She's like, we are diving right into the deep end. And
I'm not really one to not dive right in, so let's just
I love it because I do not like these fluffy, superficial conversations. I'm like,
no.
let's just get at the heart of the matter. And it is the perfect place to start, is the heart of the matter. I had somebody, and exactly what you said, Kara, is I had a call, one of the most recent clients that signed up to work with me. He said to me, my wealth and success and business acumen and companies I'm building are at a 10, and my relationship is like at a 2. My relationship with my wife, my relationship with my teenage kids, because by that time, there's strained relationships too
Yeah.
from people not being fully present. And one of the things I hear a lot is I don't really know what really makes me happy. What am I passionate about? They've lost sort of that fire. They have lots of ideas of what they should be doing. But, anyways, and I just say that is it right there, is the foundation that we built everything on. What was the foundation that we built this entire life on, this entire business, this entire whatever, right? Role that we're playing. Because if the foundation isn't solid, if it's not like dug out, there's infrastructure, it's not just like, okay, let's slap up some plywood and it looks pretty. Let's just get after building. We get so excited to build things, to create things, to chase success, but we don't have the infrastructure. And what I mean by that is we don't really have the identity yet,
Mm,
the real character, not only to attract what we truly desire, not what we think we should be chasing, what we really desire at our core, which a lot of people don't do the digging on that, right? They are so programmed. We're so programmed and
yeah.
indoctrinated that what we should want, what we should think, we're indoctrinated of what to think, not how to think. And that's why, I, in my book, Drop the Armor, I talk about our origin story. What was your origin story? What were you taught that love looks like, success looks like? For most of us, it's like, okay, if I look really great and I get really good grades and I perform amazing, I score goals in athletics and I win games and I get grades and I land the perfect job. It's like all this love, fake love, all this attention and affection pours into our life, or sometimes we have to be the protector and the provider in our family. And so from the beginning, we have a really shaky foundation of what the purpose in life is, what true success looks like, what real wealth is beyond just chasing money. So we have all these distorted constructs around what love is, what success is, what freedom actually is, right? What we're doing is we're chasing a life that actually keeps us more enslaved. And that's part of the whole factory system that is a lot of our education system, which was originally designed to create factory workers, but that's a totally different conversation. Gosh, that's a huge conversation in itself. So I would say number one, the foundations, who taught us that? Who taught you what it was like to really be loved? Not to
Mhm.
transact for love or to perform for love, but a lot of us have never actually learned how to really love others and how to receive love just because that's what love does. Right. And so I would say the foundations were broken. Number two, a lot of us never had the time to cultivate the character. What we did is we had to put on masks and identities to either survive our environment, right? Because maybe our home environment was super chaotic or unpredictable. And so we all put on these little personas who daddy wants me to be, who mommy wants me to be, who my friends want me to be, and then who my boyfriend wants me to be. And we just keep layering all these identities. So we've got all of these personas. And so much of the time, especially when I work with clients, I'm like, but who are you? If you wake up tomorrow and your job's gone, who are you? And your wife's gone and your money's like your bank accounts are at zero. And it's shattering, right? Because very few of us actually took the time and space or had the environment that really allowed us to grow and get to know our true character, who God created you to be. There's only one of you. There's only one of you, and there's only ever going to be one of you. And you're uniquely created on purpose for a divine purpose with a very unique signature and design. We spend so much time trying to be things that we're not to please people that we don't actually really want to, really thrive and be around. And so I think that those are a couple key things. A huge one is identity, like really getting to know our identity. The other one is really a grounded, healthy definition of what a rich, vibrant life of freedom and health looks like. We're given all these ideas of what our parents think that it is, or our grandparents, but it's like, what's the generational program you picked up?
Oh man, there's so much there, but it's resonates very well. Like I could not agree with you more. The foundation of how to show love and how to feel love is oftentimes overlooked, or we don't take the time to diagnose that in ourselves and like really process what our experiences were and how that was modeled to us. And then self-identity. Do you listen to Mindset Mentor ever? Rob
I think I
Dial?
have like a long time ago. I don't listen to as many mindset podcasts anymore, but I'm
There
sure
was an episode
I have in the past.
recently There was an episode recently about how to make yourself happy, basically.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
one of the concepts that he dug into was on the basis of when we are young, it starts from when we're very young and
Hmm.
we are like reprimanded 8 times more than we are
Yes.
praised as a child.
Yeah.
And then when we start to be exposed more consistently to social situations, it's most of the times you're being exposed or conditioned to feel like you have to change who you are inside to fit in or be accepted or to
Totally.
align with what everybody else is doing, and like that is how
Hmm.
you'll get love. And so we're conditioned so early to do it. And one of the steps that he was talking about was like really thinking about who are you really? Who were you meant to be? Not who have you manipulated and evolved yourself to be in certain situations, sort of like a gecko or
Hmm.
a chameleon rather. And I
And
think
I
that's
think the key there is really, what you're saying there. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Go
no, no,
ahead.
no, that's okay. That
So
no, I was
like, I'm
gonna
like,
like
oh yes, like
it seems
totally.
similar. It seems similar to what you're saying, like, it starts so early and we don't even realize that it's happening, and, even, like, as a parent, I'd never really thought about it that way, but obviously I'm so much more aware of it after thinking about this concept.
Totally. And there's so much around this. Like identity is something that I'm really, really passionate about. I
Yeah.
totally geek out on because identity drives our beliefs and our beliefs drive our thoughts and our thoughts drive our actions. And so a lot of people are trying to chase behavior modification. Well, I'll just stop doing this. I'll just start working out. I'll stop drinking. I'll be nicer to my spouse. I'll start whatever it is. And when we only address behavior modification, it's so temporary. Like you need all kinds of like carrots, dangling carrots and stuff like that. And changing our thoughts is good, but we really have to get to the root because
Mhm.
the root is in the heart. The root is in the identity. Everything that we think, we believe is based out of identity. And the question is, where did that originate? So whose thoughts were they that are planted in us about who we are? And what is the source? What has been the source of those thoughts? I mean, I hope that this really lands because a lot of times too, I just want to say this, what you were just saying is so good because when we get all that negative feedback, what's happening is that there's so much shame that's experienced at a young age. And shame is a very dense, a very heavy, low vibration emotion. It's the closest to death actually on the map of
Mhm.
consciousness. And so we will do anything to avoid shame, that feeling. And also when you couple that with our basic human needs, I mean, the first one is for security,
Mhm.
right? We need to know that we need to know what's predictable, right? It doesn't have to be comfortable, but security means I feel like I know what's going to happen. Like it's a false sense of safety sometimes, right? And connection. And so we will manipulate who we are and we will shape shift ourselves to avoid that shame or rejection at all costs, to connect and to create, because it's an illusion a lot of times, a sense of security and belonging. And that's
Mm.
why I come back to that original place that we established, our sense of connection to ourselves, to our parents, to what love looks like, and what security looks for us unconsciously, meaning in our nervous system. It's sometimes it's so twisted so much of the time, right? And I recently asked the ladies in my group, we have a women's community that I have, and it's like a monthly community, and we drop journaling prompts every morning in there. And I asked them, yesterday we were talking about rites of passage, and I said, who taught you? What was your rite of passage into becoming a woman? Into really learning and being shown and modeled what it meant to be a woman who is beautiful, success, whatever that is like for you,
Mhm.
right? And it was so interesting to hear all the replies because they were
I bet.
so twisted and so different.
Uh,
And most of them were like, oh, nobody actually taught me. I never really had a rite of passage,
Yeah.
not talked about, or it was like
Yeah.
modeled in a way that I wanted to run away from it.
So I mean, we know that everybody's childhood experiences are so different because of the nature of your family dynamic or your parents, your mentors or lack thereof, like older figures in your life that you were exposed to, like your sibling, all these different things, right? And I would imagine that so much of the things that we can't control related to our experiences and our environment growing up have a lot to do with the way you show up and move through the world, especially in these times of
Totally.
life that we're talking about, like when you're
Yeah.
at the peak of a career or in
Hmm.
a hard spot in relationships or whatever it is. Are there specific types of how do I ask this? Are there commonalities that you see that we should be aware of about ourselves or just know about ourselves that could lead to that cracked foundation or not having built that foundation that we talked about previously, that are things that we can't control that happen to us in our childhood and early life?
Hmm.
But as an adult, I have the stance of no, we can't control necessarily what happened to us at certain parts of our life. But when you become an adult, you do have the responsibility to own it and work it out and
Hmm.
see it for yourself and really
Hmm.
don't let that be the thing that makes you hurt people in your world, or don't let that be the thing
Hmm.
that makes you not reach your full potential or do the good in the world that you can.
Yeah.
So, while I have tons of empathy for everybody's journey, I think at some point too, there is a responsibility that you have to take as an adult to do more good in the world than not. And a lot of
Hmm.
the times that comes from like really diagnosing where you came from, what happened, all of these things. So, are there common themes or like things that you notice that are similar in people that are able to get to a place of rebuilding a really solid foundation and moving forward through the world in a positive way with purpose versus those that there's more of a struggle there? And feel free to answer that question however you want. I think you probably get what I'm trying to understand, but I probably didn't articulate that question very well.
So let me just clarify. You're asking me, are there similar patterns or things that I'm noticing in people who are ready to make that change?
Yes, yes, exactly.
Or are there certain patterns that people need to be aware of that say, hey, it's time to make a change?
Yeah, and maybe less of like a from a judgmental place, more from a self-awareness place.
Yeah. So, okay. I love this question. And I think we've all heard this. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. And so I want to just unpack this a little bit. First of all, I would say self-awareness, there's three stages of transformation. To transform something means to change its entire form, right? It's going beyond the current form. That means your thoughts are different, your emotions are different, you even might look different, the tone of your voice sounds different. There's a total transformation. Like a butterfly has no resemblance to a caterpillar, okay?
Yeah.
And so even though my name is still the same. I mean, I've had people say this to me all the time, like, wow, you're unrecognizable sometimes from who you used to be. You still have your core identity or personality quirks, but my life today is radically different. Like it's inside out. So it's just beyond, it's a different reality. So this whole thing about like, I've lived multiple lifetimes because every time I say yes to the next evolution, I know there has to be a releasing of the old. So it always starts with that self awareness, right? The awareness is the first stage. I think a lot of people, either they don't have self-awareness until something happens to you externally, like somebody comes home and says, hey, guess what? I want out of this marriage. Or, hey, guess what? You're fired. Or, hey, guess what? Either something happens to us or in us that
Mhm.
rattles our world. That usually is the first time that our eyes are really open. Once you have an eye-opening experience that really rattles you to your core, usually, now we embrace awareness. Now we're like, okay, I want my eyes open. I'm a lot more self-reflective. But self-awareness is the ability to see myself and become the observer. So can I see my triggers? What are all of the things that trigger me, that frustrate me? I always say, like, frustration is just a lot of misalignment. Triggers reflect where we still have wounding that needs to be healed. Anything that's irritating us, where our nervous system, it's like, okay, wow, okay, can I observe what's happening in my body, right? So the ability to observe without reacting, right? Being conscious in that moment and being able to be present with whatever's presenting itself, whether it's a trigger, whether it's a flood of emotion, whether it's like a instant desire to want to run, like I want to run and get out of here or hide under a table or lash out or whatever it is, or even just to observe how we shut down in certain situations, right?
Mhm.
Without judging ourselves. There's just a lot of people pleasing that I work with. Surprisingly, you would think that people that get to the top, they're just more aggressive and belligerent, but actually they're amazing masters of people pleasers. And
Yeah.
actually the root of that is control and manipulation. It's crazy because it's worn under the umbrella of, oh, I care so much about people. But when we peel away the layers, it's actually the root is, no, I need to manipulate people because I don't want to feel uncomfortable.
Mm.
It's crazy. Okay. So again, only for those who are not faint of heart, who are willing to take radical
Yeah.
ownership and go, whoa, self-awareness is that piece. The second piece is integration, which is now, okay, great. My eyes are open. Now I have to be willing to do something different, to do the thing that feels really scary. This is why a lot of my coaching is faith-based, in the sense that it takes faith and a lot of courage to do the thing that's really terrifying, uncomfortable, to stretch us into different territory, to have conversations that are really, we're never taught to have difficult conversations with ourselves. Integration is the practice of showing up and running the new drills and doing the new things. And for some of us, we have to go through, it's not pretty, like it gets messy. But integration takes time, it takes space, it takes intention, and it takes an incredible amount of willingness. So, to your point, the one thing that I see that I ask, actually, it's on my intake form, is, are you willing to get way out of your comfort zone and do things you've never done before? Because if the answer is, I don't, and I have them rated on a scale of 1 to 10, because if they're like, well, I'm like a 3 on that, like I know that the minute I invite them into this new thing to press in, they're going to run back to what's familiar, because the need for
Yeah.
certainty is still so strong,
Mhm.
right? So willingness, I would say, is probably one of the top things. Number 2 is decisiveness. And what I mean by that is a decision. When you look at the Hebrew word for decision, it actually means incision. A decision is not a choice. You're not like selecting from a menu. Oh, like, which job would I like? Which new relationship? You're actually making a cut. You're saying, effective immediately, I am no longer available for that ever again. Like, I'm only going to do this. I will no longer compromise my values. I will no longer live this way. I refuse to build a business from pressure. Right. And I did a post on distorted marketing tactics that are in the world. There's so much twisted programming around how to manipulate everything to get what you want. The minute you decide, I'm no longer going to be a people pleaser, I'm no longer going to walk on eggshells, I refuse. Willingness and decisiveness, man, that is power, because now
Yeah.
you're cutting. And now it's not like I have options. There are
Mhm.
no options. There's one option, right? So you've got to be at that place, because then you're willing to go into integration. And then, one of the other questions I personally ask, is I think it's really important, because I know from my own life, I have a big warrior spirit and I love fight. I love a great challenge. I mean, everything I put my mind to, I was successful at. But I was like, are you done going alone? You
Mm.
need to be done going alone, thinking that you can fix it yourself, thinking that you can solve it all, that you can find, like, I always say, are you ready to get to work in the spiritual realm as well as the physical realm? Are you ready to invite God to come along beside you and work with a mentor, a coach, a community, something? Because you need people, you need solid people around you that can reflect back truly, right?
Mhm.
Good, grounded, solid people that can be mirrors for you. But I think also we have to release this idea that I have to figure it all out myself. Because I know that there's a guy that wants to come around you who already knows the path before you, knows the job, knows the setup. He's already got the whole lay of the land. And you're like, you can either collaborate and co-create with him, or you can go, I'm good, thanks. I'm going to figure it all out myself, which is like
Yep.
the recipe for suffering, you know? And so the last piece is obviously after you go through this integration and you're willing and you're leaning in and you're making decisions, and then we get to embodiment, which is the new normal, right? And embodiment essentially is mastery, which now I just do it without consciously having to think about it. Like, of course, this is just the way we operate in the relationships. Of
Yeah.
course, this is just the way we do leadership. It just is. It's like tying your shoes now. You're not having to focus so much energy on being
Yeah.
present for it because it's in you.
All of this resonates so much. Something that I don't think I consciously thought about always, but has become more of a conscious thought. It's always been, I'd say it's always been in my subconscious because I lean as a person and a leader more on like, I care a lot about integrity and ethics of doing things
Mhm.
and
Mm.
whether that is a positive or negative on like success. But this concept of doing things right, or sorry, doing the right things, but then also doing things right. And
Mm.
you're sort of like the same sentence, but it's like there's a difference between doing the right things and doing things the right way. And in my opinion and experience, that's always been correlated to I heard you use this concept or this term in something of yours I was listening to, but the illusion of success. I think it's very easy to say, I'm doing all the right things and I have this illusion of success. But when you really start to think about, but am I doing things the right way? Then maybe that illusion of success starts to crumble a little bit. I would love to hear your perspective and all of your thoughts on just the concept of the illusion of success, and you can reach success in whatever that means for you personally, but you can also do it in the right way. And it's not just about like inputs and inputs and inputs. It's what is the makeup and the foundation under the things that you're doing and the way you're doing them and the way you're moving through the world and the way you're treating people and all of those things. Cause it's like one plus one doesn't necessarily equal two
No, it
in life.
doesn't. Oh my gosh, so good. I love this. You're great at asking great questions, right?
Thank you.
So I love it. So first of all, I just want to tap into that thing of integrity that you said, because I would say I work, one of the things I didn't mention is I do a lot of the executive coaching inside of our organization. I do the really intimate, deep work in the heart and the relationships and the spiritual walk and the next calling. But we also have a component of our business that is leadership and development training for the whole person inside of organizations. So employee mid-level management, where we come in and we support those people and companies really to build an awesome culture by really investing in the heart of their people, because that's the heartbeat of everything else. I mean,
Mhm.
we pour the love into the people and we really create an environment where people can thrive. They just perform better. Like they produce, they're way more productive. They're more
Yeah.
engaged. The money is a byproduct, right? Like
Mhm.
sales, all of that. You and I talked a little bit about that. So I wanted to bring that up because whenever we work with companies, leaders, or whatever, you walk in and you see their mission statement. It's like integrity is always one of them. And I always ask everyone, like, what does that actually mean? And I love getting like a group of even executives in the room, and I'll ask them, and I'll tell you that they will either all say something different, which is fine because we all
Yeah.
have our own definition of that. But integrity really means wholeness, like integrale. The Latin root of integrity means whole. And here's the thing that I've noticed is when people are unclear on their values, like really what their values are, like they haven't upgraded them in a long time. They haven't defined them again, going back to what we were talking about. They're still running values from what they were taught as kids, which may still
Yeah.
be relevant, but they often upgrade and evolve, right? Like my definition of vitality and health today is very different than it was when I was in my 20s, when it was about like being super fit and lean and all this stuff. So my point with this is that we haven't revisited really what our core values, what are the things that we will live on the sword and die by the sword for? Have we
Mhm.
defined them? And then whenever we are compromising our values to get our needs met, there is an inner civil war. And we do
Mm.
this all the time in business. We will have all these values written up. We won't really have identified, but we feel like there's this inner civil war going on, or inner unrest. There's division, and it can be inside of us. And usually, what I notice is in leadership, if this is going on in their company, it's going on in the leadership, in the heart of the leadership. There's inner civil war here, and it's reflecting outside with division, grumbling, gossip, dissension, people undermining authority. It's just such a reflection. Because what we're doing is we're either consciously or unconsciously compromising the values that we say we stand for in order to get the next client, the next deal, the next position, to get our needs met, belonging, connection, the illusion of safety, the illusion of success, right? In an interview I did with one of our clients, Josh, he said, do the right thing and say the right thing, even when it makes your voice shake. And even if it costs the company money, even if you're going to get rejected and fired, that's what it means to have integrity, because you know you can walk away from that a whole man, a whole woman. So I wanted to say that one thing. I want to say this other piece about the right thing, because you're absolutely right. Sometimes you can be doing all the right things. You can have the perfect formula for sales, for marketing, for a relationship. You can have the perfect script to tell your spouse. You're like, I totally am doing all the right things, but I'm going to say a couple things. The right thing at the wrong time will yield the wrong results. A lot of us don't understand the art of timing. We haven't cultivated the understanding or understanding of right timing, right season. God is a God of order for everything under the sun, right? Nothing in nature really produces fruit 24 hours a day. Like there's a season for strawberries, there's a season for pears, there's a season for peonies, roses. And so we get all hung up, but the world's definition of success is always be putting out, always be producing. I'm a machine. And it's like, that's unnatural, actually.
Yeah.
So we are so anxious and agitated when we're like, what's wrong with me? I'm not closing today. I'm not producing today. And we get all of this anxiousness. And so it's like, look, we might be doing the right thing, but in the wrong order. It might be the wrong season. It might be the season to focus on something else right now to set up the infrastructure. So, when it's go time, and we've got the channels ready to go. And I just see this tension so much, especially with companies I'm working with, that they're still always trying to grow, but it's not the season for that. It's the season for stabilization. So they're doing all the right things and they're losing money and their people are exhausted. And it's like, wrong thing, right thing, wrong time, right thing, wrong order. But you can have all the perfect words. You put them in the wrong order, it's a hot mess. You can have a team meetings, you can have a date night. You're like, man, I said the right things. It's like, you didn't say them in the right order. And it was also the right thing, wrong tone, wrong energy. So there's so much behind doing that so many of us are so focused on. I'm doing. We're not thinking about, am I in the right state? What is the energy that I'm initiating this conversation from? What is the energy that I'm in this sales conversation is? Right? What is the right state? Is it the right timing? Is it the right order? Is this even the right system? Are these even the right people?
All of it. And even knowing what the concept of, am I doing the right thing? Even that to me is not a black and white thing. Like the right thing is gray area. It can be subjectively decided, right? And I think the reason that there's subjectivity in gray area is exactly what you said. Timing is everything. The art of timing is I love the way you put that, because like it could be sort of the right thing, but if it's not the right time, then it's just not the right thing. That is the gray area and the subjectivity that could come along with things like that. So I I feel like my gut reaction when you were talking about people could say that they are feel that they are doing the right things, like the right input, the right thing to say to your spouse, the right thing to say in the sales meeting or with the business or whatever, and it's not the right time. It seems like there's some correlation there between mastering the art of timing and also like our own ego, and we've convinced ourselves that we know the right way or the right path or the right move without taking into account emotional intelligence and assessing an entire scenario and assessing the people around you, not just what's in your own head. And all that is, I think, in some way, not exclusively, but in some way correlated to managing our own ego. Do you have a perspective on that?
Yeah, I love it. In the book, Drop the Armor, I have a whole 3 section on understanding the nature. I mean, obviously, this is a warrior theme because I'm talking to a lot of people that have been warriors. You're slaying in business, you're slaying in life, you're slaying in fitness. You're like, come on, bring it on. So I use a lot of these themes. So I have a whole 3-part series on understanding the nature of the battles that we're fighting every day, whether it's the fight could be fun. It could be a fun competition. It could be a sales thing. It could be a fight with our spouse. But so many of us are so entrenched in me, 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 me. What's happening to me? What are they thinking about me? Why did you look at me like that? What am I going to lose out? And that's ego, ego, ego. But at the root, so much of that is actually the stem is fear and selfishness. It's self-centeredness,
Mhm.
right? And we have such a myopic view of what's going on because
Mhm.
fear is actually running the show. A lot of times with ego, it's really just two things. It's fear and pride. And I will say pride is the big dragon that we got to slay in a lot of the leaders that I work with because there's so much of our pride is tied up in being right, in having that position, in being respected or being seen as da 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 da. And so as we're thinking about emotional intelligence, emotional maturity. I mean, it's hard, but again, who taught us this stuff? We were so taught to just get out there, get after it, work. If you slow down, you're lazy. And we were just taught that to be human doings, we hear this all the time, but not human beings. It wasn't okay to just be. We were always taught I have to be doing something to be loved or say the right thing. And so we're so uncomfortable much of the time with just really being that. And I'll say this, like, one of the biggest pieces of work that I do with people is teaching them how to really be with their innermost self. And it's really uncomfortable. People really resist it. But in order to be able to have that level of emotional intelligence and hold space for other people, you need to be able to do it for yourself. So if
Yeah.
you're running from your own emotions and your own fears and you're running from pride, you're always going to be met at the level of consciousness that you're operating from. You're
Mhm.
going to be met with more people that are self centered. You're going to be met with more people that are driven by fear. As you start to transcend that and you move beyond that, it's really a journey of going
Mhm.
in, in, out of your head, deep into your heart, which is the gateway to the soul, into the spirit, and into the room at a different level. Cause now you have different eyes. You can see things from a different vantage point. You do it by going inward. So I think really the journey here is one of going inward to be really dialed in, not tuned out.
Yeah.
And most of us are so tuned out. I'm like, tune into what you're thinking and what she's thinking and what he's doing. And did you hear what that person did? Instead of being really inward, not inward focused about me, but really tuned in, which is what really discernment is
Mhm.
being able to discern, is this the right time? Is this the wrong thing? Again, sometimes it is the right thing. Sometimes the right thing is to speak up. Sometimes the right thing is to just shut up and listen, But where do you get that from? What's the filter? You've got to really be tuned in. You've got to learn to get quiet. You've
Yeah.
got to learn to open
Yeah.
your eyes. And I mean, there's a process, obviously, and there's lots of different ways that people get there. I have a process I walk my clients into. But I'll tell you, it's really challenging because people are uncomfortable with feeling discomfort.
Yeah. Very much so. Something I like to ask myself, and I probably only started doing this in the last like 5 years, maybe less than that of my life, but especially no, both in personal and professional. But before I send a text or before I send an email or send the Slack or say something on a meeting, I just have a moment of checking in with myself of like, why am I saying this or why am I writing this? Am
Yeah.
I doing this for me or am I doing this because it's actually going to help the situation? Am I doing this because of my ego
Yes.
and I want to feel like I said something smart or am I doing this saying this because I actually feel like it's going to
Mhm.
propel the situation forward? Am
Mhm.
I replying right now to an emotional email or text or something
Mhm.
because it's gonna make me feel
Mhm.
better, or am I doing it
Yeah.
for the situation? And so that
Yeah.
is scratching the surface of what I could be doing, but I have found that that little moment of check in with
Huge.
myself of just asking the motive behind what I'm doing is super helpful to me to stay conscious as to why am I doing what I'm doing? Why am I putting energy where I'm putting energy? But something okay, last big bigger meatier question, and then I want to talk a lot more about the book. So I know you work with both men and women, which is amazing.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
and maybe actually this is relevant to men and women, but specifically as a woman who started my career in tech sales and like specifically Silicon Valley based tech companies, that world, my experience was that it taught me early in my career that the way to be successful in what I thought was successful at the time was to have a lot of masculine energy,
Yeah.
and I've only really started to get super uncomfortable with that and unpack it in the last few years, and I don't think because I started my career in tech changes that this experience, I believe, especially
Mhm.
for women, is very similar.
Mhm.
Just in any quest for success, we're taught, like, masculine energy is a way to propel ourselves to some
Mhm.
illusion of success. And what
Mhm.
really broke that down for me the first like really big moment for me was when I had my son 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And
Mm.
after the fact, I felt very different physically and cognitively. Like my brain was so fuzzy and cloudy for much longer than I expected it to be.
Yeah.
I remember after I went back to work and I had my first really big meeting, I left that meeting and I just started crying because I didn't add any value. I didn't feel like I was processing at the clip that I was used to. I didn't say
Right?
anything smart. I don't feel like I was
Mhm.
helpful at all. It was like I was a bump on a log. And I
Yeah.
remember how much that rocked me. And it gave me,
Yeah.
instead of, I wasn't actually in that moment focused on solutioning for how do I do better in the next meeting. My brain went to, I did not realize so much of my self worth was wrapped up in
Right?
producing in a meeting and being smart and
Yeah.
thinking
Yeah.
quickly and adding
Yeah.
value. And so that was like the most pivotal moment for me of really going on this quest of understanding what is my self-worth made up of? How do I
Yeah.
bring that back into balance? How do I
Yeah.
dissociate that and detach that from work and production and adding value, in every moment? Because you don't have to be a good person and add value to the world. You do not have to add value at every moment in a business sense. So it brought me to this journey of like really understanding the balance in myself of masculine and feminine energy and how could I actually strike more of a balanced place or even lean more into feminine energy, which is what I feel at my core. Like I'm a yes, I have strong opinions and
Mhm.
I move quickly and think quickly, but like I'm a soft person. And how do you, as a woman with similar experiences, get to the place where you feel like you can reach your version of success and be a very successful, respected executive, but not do that through brute force masculine energy at all times. And I'm positive you have like magic to share with me on this topic, but I'm curious your thoughts.
So this is like a whole week-long retreat right here.
Okay.
This is like a
Sign
whole
me
week
up.
now.
Sign me up.
This and by the way, we do have a women's retreat in the summer that you should come, and we do
I will
this
be
every
there.
year. It's
I'm
about
coming. Yeah.
feminine leadership. I think we're gonna do Tahoe this year. We have to lock in our location. But this is really the topic that we dive into, and this is the topic that we dive into in my women's community too. It's just like this is all I really focus on is feminine leadership, feminine design. What does it look like when it's lived out, in the
Mhm,
marketplace, in our families, everything.
mhm,
And again, there's so much to this, and I just really want to tune in for this ounce of time of what I want to share. I want to say this that first of all, the program that we grew up with was the era that we're in, the time in the world that we're in. This was the program. We had an outdated definition of success that was very linear. It was very much a man's definition, right? It was very masculine oriented, like males, right, were the primary source of creating a lot of those structures and stuff. So we sort of adopted their program, their way of doing things. And then women come enter the marketplace really after the 1950s. I mean, women have always been active in the marketplace, but we entered in this like post world war into this kind of very industrial factory kind of system. And we're like, okay, I need to go be and like arm up, like I forget what that woman is, but she's like, I'm strong, I'm capable,
yeah.
I can do
Rosie the
anything.
Riveter.
Yeah. And we're like, I got to be that. And so, there's a distortion that's been happening since the beginning of time of like, we're competing against masculine men instead of really working together to multiply what we were created to do as male and female.
Mhm.
Multiply and prosper isn't just about, hey, get together, have babies, like multiply and fill the earth.
Yeah, yeah.
It's actually about like multiply each other. When you get in right relationships, masculine and feminine energy, males and females working together, man, it's like rocket fuel environment. If you get men who are really in their genius, doing the thing that they're created to do, we're doing it the way we're created to do. Man, we see some awesome exponential increase because we have this beautiful blend of structure and heart and creativity and systems and it's like the best of everything comes together and we multiply it. But the problem is that again, because a lot of the programming, we try to change who we are at our core. We change our design and we try to fit into a mold. And so we always it's a burnout. It's territory for burnout. I want to say this just because it's on my heart. Spiritually, at the spiritual level, there's no such thing as male or female. The spirit is asexual. It's like masculine. We talk about like God is neither male or female. He has both masculine and feminine. He has heart and logic. Like
Mhm.
it's both. And so in our spirit, in our soul, we have access to this masculine ability of vision and structure and clarity and right drive and all of that. And we also have this beautiful heart and creativity and all of that. That's the spiritual soul side of us. But in this physical body that I'm wearing right now, that's got a nervous system and biology and a womb and ovaries, and my biology is female. My biology was designed this way on purpose. The female's body was not designed to produce the same way that the masculine body is. It's like totally affects our nervous system. It affects our hormones. It affects us completely differently. I'm talking about just scientifically from a biological standpoint. So when we're sitting over here and we're trying to use this beautiful vessel for creation, that is really a birthing vessel to create and pour life and nurture environments, and really that's like the feminine design. It doesn't mean we don't have awesome clarity and vision and stuff like that, but we're designed to work different, right? And then this is why I go back to that idea of rhythms and structure. And so a lot of the work that I do anyways with women is really coming back to, I use these terms of, what are you pregnant with right now? What are you gestating? Like, what are you pregnant with? Can you be pregnant, or are you always trying to prematurely pop babies out? Because we get impatient because we have this distorted relationship with time, that I'm running out of time, which, by the way, is rooted in Chronos, which was the Greek god of destruction. Chronological time comes from the root chronos. So it's interesting that so many people feel like they're always like running out of time, and it's like a slow death. It's like Kairos is heavenly time, or the time beyond that, which is there's a right time for the right things. There's these divine appointments, like it's heaven's time. There's the right time. It's about timing, appointments. And so again, I'm saying all of this as we think about women in leadership, is really to notice, wow, I've been in this like factory production system that I'm just like, okay, pregnant, pop out idea, pop out idea, pop out idea. I never have time to actually proper nurture anything because I'm like, okay, get the next thing out. Imagine if we operated like that with our parenting. I think the feminine has such a beautiful ability to hold. We're like the holders of visions. We're like the birther, like we give life to visions. We nurture communities and people and leadership. We breathe life into businesses, right? We breathe life into the structure, and we have this ability to multiply things that I think is way greater than the masculine does, actually, because that's what we were created to do. And so we don't joke about it, but it's actually true. When we talk about wealth and multiplication of ideas and all of these things, I'm like, ladies, you're the multiplier effect. We really are. We are the multiplier effect. We can multiply people, we can multiply money, we can multiply, but it's how we're doing it. And so again, just, am I constantly like, if I can just share that with your female audience, are you always trying to birth things prematurely? Because if you're trying to birth everything prematurely because you're afraid of missing out, or you're afraid that someone else is ahead of you, or you're afraid of whatever, that thing that you birth is going to take an incredible amount of time, energy, resource to keep alive. You're going to be having sleepless nights. You're going to be exhausted. It's like a preemie versus letting it totally marinate. And then when it's time, it's like, boom, it's go time. Now we push. It's time to push, baby. And then we nurture. And so this is like when I work with leaders, I like to use these analogies of different stages of what they're working with, and also what their body needs at each stage of the game.
Yeah. Oh, that's such a good message. Thank you for sharing that. That was a very good way to wrap this discussion. I want to hear, okay, so someone should read your book if they're looking for what?
Well, the book is really written for that ultra high achiever who's been fighting battles their whole life, and they are just really ready, willing, and open to do something radically different because they know that you're created for a life of, you can have success and peace. You can have freedom, and you can have massive fulfillment in the process. So it's really for those people who are ready to get out of their head into their hearts, to transcend all of these old programs, to drop, that's why it's called Drop the Armor, drop the lies, drop the mental weight, drop the weight of trying to carry everything on your own, on your shoulders. You were never meant to carry the weight of the world and everybody in your organization. Like, drop all of that stuff that you're holding on to out of fear that's really holding you back, and really start making the trek into this new space. So Drop the Armor, I went through, this was the journey I went through, and there's 13 chapters or 12 steps that I went through that I take clients through. What does that even look like? What does it even look like to drop the armor and then actually crack open my heart? because a lot of us are walking around with a lot of armor around our hearts. We're so protective, right? We don't want to get hurt again. We don't want to get wounded. We don't want to get rejected. We're closed off. And actually, we're asking for the next opportunity, but we're actually closed off to receiving it. We want intimacy in our marriage, but we're actually not available for it. And so I walk people through a whole process of just really softening our heart again and getting rid of a lot of the stuff that's been suppressed and repressed in there so that you can breathe again, so that you can be open and receptive. And then there's a whole section on really cultivating discernment, timing, a lot of the things that we talked about today. Like, how do you know what the right thing is at the right time? And so it's a process of releasing the past, igniting your faith, because I do not think you can do this process alone, and really stepping into an extraordinary life. And extraordinary is a very commonly used term, but it really means not ordinary. It's extraordinary. It's beyond. So I hope that when people look at me or they look at people who've gone through this process, they're able to go like, man, Kara, like what is up with you? What are you doing? Like, that's so different. And then you get to bring other people along, so it's for the people who are ready to forge the new path. And that's why I'm really passionate about getting it into, obviously it's for anyone. I mean, everyone's a leader. We always are leading ourselves. So congratulations. Even if you're on your own, you are leading yourself. And some of us are terrible at leading ourselves. That's why our self-confidence is so low. We don't know how to keep promises to ourselves. But if you have a family, I have really a heart to get this in the hands of leaders inside of organizations, because I think that is really the church of today. I mean, people are going to work for 40, 50 hours a week. That's their community. That's their thing. And it's like, can you imagine if that's where the place where people go to come alive, like really come alive, to become more of who they are? And it starts with the leadership. Yeah. Training people a new way of doing old things.
I'm so excited to read it. Okay, so when does the book actually come out? And then until then, how can people find you and connect with you and follow the work that you're doing?
Yay. Okay, the book is officially available for pre-order now. It's available on all major platforms, but it will drop June 3rd. I'm giving away a free chapter, the first introduction chapter, as well as chapter 1, called The Perfect Storm, which is the breakthrough moment that changes everything. So that's available. We're going to share the link. It's at thechristinejewel.com/drop it. So I'm sure you can share the link with that.
Yeah, I'll
so
share it in
give
the show
everybody
notes.
the chapter. You can buy the book from there. I would say that's the first place. Once you come in, we'll invite you into a community. We're going to have a launch party. Depending on when you guys are hearing this, there's a private Facebook community. We're going to have an awesome launch party. We're going to do giveaways, signed copies, coaching packages. Like, I'm really pouring my heart and soul into getting this message out. But that is the first place to just download the first chapter, to read it. If it lands for you, get the book, get inside our community. I'm going to be doing lots more deep dives and free trainings and stuff like that on these topics.
Amazing. And then where can people find you on social to just get I think this was a very good introduction to your perspectives on all the topics we talked about and just the type of work and transformation that you can do with your clients. But where else can we find you?
Yeah. So my podcast is called Breaking Chains. It's all about that, breaking free of a lot of the slave system, the things that are keeping us stuck, enslaved in the grind, playing from behind, so that we can really move forward lighter, clear. It's a lot of perspective shifting. So the podcast is called Breaking Chains. And then I am also on Instagram and Facebook at The Christine Jewel. I'm pretty active on LinkedIn. But I would just say first step is really download the book. And then if you want to connect with me and you want to learn more, you can connect with me through LinkedIn or through my website. But
Amazing.
I'm kind of all over the place. But once you get in on that first chapter of the book, trust me, you'll be in my world. I'll be inviting you to all the awesome things.
Incredible. Okay, I will drop the link to where you can download the book in the show notes so that it's easy for everybody to access. And I could not have loved this conversation more. Thank you so much for your time, Christine. And I'm excited to continue the conversation between me and you one-on-one. There's so much more that we can talk about. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Are you somebody that loves to listen to podcasts, learn, and consume knowledge in general, but maybe you find the process of picking those episodes that are really value-packed and worth your time challenging? Am I right? You're busy. I get it. If that's the case, the Pod Squad is for you. Every Tuesday, Haley and I are dropping in your inbox the absolute best listens for personal development and business podcasts for the week. We will even give you the Cliff Notes version so that you can still apply the takeaways and consume the knowledge quickly, even if you don't have time to listen to them all. To get the rec sent to you, just go to getgateless.com/subscribe or click the link in the show notes and enter your email address. And that's all you have to do. You will look forward to this every single week, and it will just be your listening cue until the following Tuesday. I hope you enjoy.